Today on the podcast, we're joined by Ann Mitchell, City Manager at the City of Medicine Hat. With over 30 years of experience in local government, Ann brings a deep understanding of what it takes to lead municipal organizations with both strategic vision and operational excellence. Throughout Ann's career, she has embraced the challenge of balancing internal leadership with external accountability, serving not only as a city manager, but also as a trusted advisor to councils. What drives her most is the opportunity to effect meaningful, positive change in the communities she serves. A certified executive coach, a lifelong learner, a PhD candidate, Ann brings a unique perspective to public sector leadership, one that is grounded in continuous learning, ethical governance, and the power of strong relationships. Welcome to Retaining Purpose, Ann.
Thank you, and I'm very honored to be one of your few first guests and happy to be here, Randy. And I love our conversations that we've had.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we kind of first met a few months ago. A little, almost a year, I guess. And definitely we felt a connection there as far as that leadership and culture standpoint.
Yes. And you know what? A lot of people reach out to me in my role to talk about various things that programs or services that the city's doing. And I knew right away you and I had a really connection on leadership and positive leadership. One thing you said to me that really resonated in the last meeting that we had maybe 3 weeks ago was the leadership puzzle. And I've really been thinking a lot about that. And when you're building teams, no matter what sector you work in, it's very clear that you have to make sure that you have that right balance. And it is a leadership puzzle. Yes, you need the people who have the skill set and to be people leaders, but you also have to know that they fit in well with the team. But in my position in local government, I would say not only fit in with the team, but would fit in with the community as well.
Right.
So I think that's pretty critical.
That's a totally different element you have to consider when these people are going into these leadership positions, right?
Exactly.
And what drew you into leadership? So you've been in municipal government for 30 plus years now.
Yes.
What got you started and what drew your passion to leadership and corporate culture?
Well, I would say the specific role that I do now, I'm a third generation CAO. So my dad did it in Northern Ontario, my grandfather in Northern Manitoba. So I think it's in my genes, and I didn't have a prayer.
It was this is genetic.
This is genetic.
Yeah.
But early on in my career, I was working for the city of Sault Ste. Marie, and I was put in charge of a lot of people. And I was fairly young at that point. But I had a great leader called Norm, and he was so empowering that he said, Ann, go and run with it. And even though I was in this type of job class, Norm trusted me enough to do all of these things. And he could see that I could handle these teams and I could lead well and I could bring people together. So it's these early leaders that you meet that give you faith and give you confidence. And then you think, oh, I can do this. And the more I did, the more he gave me and the more he trusted me. And so it's these people in your lives that make this impact, I believe. And I love the leadership because when you, and the word empowered, I believe is overused, but I would say when you find people and you see them grow and you see them become, the best that they can be, that is so gratifying. That is so gratifying.
It is. It's incredible. And it's a very intentional thing you have to do, right? So when you got Norm as what I would say is one of your first mentors, right? Because mentorship is huge, and I know you believe strongly in it now. How old would you have been, or where were you at in your career exactly?
I must have been about 30, 32, and it was before I took my first CAO job, and there was another gentleman there called Joe. So Norm and Joe, one was the marina manager and one was the arena manager, but those two really encouraged me to do anything. And so when the first CAO job came up, they encouraged me, and they were so supportive. And you can do this. It meant me leaving the city.
Right.
But they supported that for me for my personal growth. Funny thing about Norm was not overly emotional. And when I left and it was my last day, he left. And I was a little bit, oh my goodness, is he upset? And he phoned me from the parking lot. He was too emotional to say goodbye. And he wasn't really emotional. So these kind of people impact us so greatly. So you want to be that type of leader for other people throughout your career because you remember the early ones that meant so much to you. and you
Yeah.
have to pass that on.
Well, yeah, I think it's our responsibility to pass it
Yes,
on, right?
absolutely.
And anyone that does end up, and leadership occurs at so many different levels, right? It's not like you have to be the top of. You don't have to be the CAO of the city.
No.
You can be someone middle manager. You can be a new employee, and you can lead up, right?
Yeah.
But it is one of those things, and I encourage that with all of our guys too. Is we try to build a culture of mentorship, right? And here, we were talking just a little bit ago about some of the different age ranges we had, and really encouraging some of our older men and women that are here to be able to mentor the younger ones. And it's invaluable. And truthfully, what I have found over the years, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, I get so much gratification out of it when you see the success of others, and you hope, but often realize you played a role in that.
Oh, it's the best feeling in the world. It is really lifting other people out through helping them. And I've always been a big believer in that. I mentor CAOs right across the country because at my age and stage in my career, there's a lot of young people that want to get into local government. I worry about this sector because of all the challenges that we're facing, I would say, with incivility. And I really found that if I can give back to my sector by supporting young people who are either in senior leadership roles in local government or specifically the CAO role, because it's a unique one.
Yep.
And it's not like private. It is just different. You're that linchpin.
Sure.
And you have to lead up to council. You have to lead down to your staff. You have to lead out to the community. And the people in the community say, like, for example, the police chief, you have to have a relationship with him, but you don't oversee him. So It's a lot of collaboration. You've got to work with neighboring CAOs. There's a lot of that connectivity that you need in this role, and and you have to have extremely high political acuity.
Yeah, and you are building relationships 24/7
all the time, and repairing and maintaining too. Because often things happen and you have to spend a lot of time. I remember early on in my CAO career that I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I could really get some work done if people would stop wanting to have these conversations with me. And then I had a little light bulb moment and I went, these conversations are my work.
100%, right? That is your job as CAO. And it's a really hard one, actually, even in business, to get across to people that want to lead a business, not work in a business, is your job changes, right? You are there. People are the number one asset of any business. You're there to manage your people, right? And some of that is it's stuff you feel hugely unproductive in, but the productivity comes in what they bring after you've talked to them, right? So.
Absolutely. And I think we have to understand that in certain roles, and this happens so much, somebody's good at this and it's technical, and then we think, oh, great, and elevate them.
Yes.
But are they good people leaders? Because that's what you need to be up there. You need to be a people leader. You need to trust but verify. You need to delegate. It's a hard balance, but some people just are good in this role, not necessarily in that leadership role. And as leaders, we have to understand that as well, too.
100%. Yeah. Not everybody is equipped. Mm-hmm. There's that natural progression. It's like, well, this person got here, now they should go to here. The car salesman that's really great at selling cars could be the worst sales manager you ever saw in your life.
Exactly.
Right? Because he's not meant to lead people. So it's that balancing. It's really taking a very holistic view at the skill set of the individual in question. So, and I want to ask you a series of questions from some quotes on some books.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Peter Drucker?
Yes.
Okay. So one of Peter Drucker's quotes is, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." Walk me through what you think of when you hear that.
Well, I think about Sioux Lookout. I was the CAO there for 6 years, and we had a community of 6,000 people surrounded by 30,000 First Nations. They all used our community for healthcare and fly-in. A lot of it was fly-in only reservations.
Right.
So one of the things that I know is I assembled a fantastic team there. We were small but mighty.
Yep.
But the work that we did It was amazing. And I think that's what he's talking about. In my opinion, that's how I take that quote.
Yep.
It's because we had a small team. We implemented Truth and Reconciliation Committee of Council. We did partnerships with the Friendship Center to run our youth center. We did handy transit. We did all of these things because our team was together and we were so good and our culture was so strong. We all worked together. I had somebody on that team, a finance person who was fantastic. Yep. They were an hour away from their home. And I made the decision to she wanted to go. She left. She came back because she realized she missed us and that team environment. And we would tease her and say, you had the longest holidays of anybody, 3 months. But knowing that and knowing how you said the leadership puzzle, these people all fit together, we could do so much great work there because of the team.
Right. You could execute, right?
We executed so well. And the other piece, Randy, in that area, you can't recruit. Here, it's so different. But recruiting there in the middle of Northwestern Ontario is challenging.
It's a pretty small list of people that are willing to go, let alone looking to go.
Yeah, so you had to work at it that way and make sure. I also had a public works person who was fantastic at capital projects and really good with numbers and running all that. Not so great leading teams and people. So we changed the structure. So his number 2 did all the contact with the public, did all the staff, and it worked.
It was his gift to be able to do that.
Because I had the flexibility to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like that. So now let's flip the script on it. Mm-hmm. Let's say, again, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Let's say you have you're working this strategy. You've been doing this long enough, and within Medicine Hat, you're coming in fresh. How does it work the other side of that? If there's a bad culture, what happens? It doesn't, how do you implement a strategy when that culture keeps trying to pull against it?
Well, right now we're in the middle of redoing our culture. And we've implemented culture workshops with everybody, making everybody feel comfortable to share how they're really feeling about the culture.
Right.
And I would say in a large complex organization that we have, it is a lot more difficult. When I was at Lethbridge County, the city manager at the time, he was talking to me about it, and he said, Anne, I can't get the culture changed. And I said, but you're turning the Titanic, and I'm turning a rowboat. It's very different.
Very, very different.
For a large city.
Yeah.
So making sure that everybody understands the values, supports the values, and giving them the freedom and the space. Yeah. We've had many, many internal workshops. But we also have to get council on board.
Sure.
We also have to get the public on board, right? Because people say they want change, but they don't want to change. So you and I've had that conversation before too. So making sure that the environment's right and understanding that the culture, if the culture isn't great, it didn't get that way overnight. So it's not going to get fixed overnight. So managing expectations so people really understand that it's going to take some time, but living and breathing our culture every day, tone at the top, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then for someone in your role, needing to find that balance between ensuring councils have a vision of what the culture is going to look like or what you hope it's going to look like. And then also, having the proper leadership team in place to bring that down into the teams. And we're going to get into, bureaucratic structure a little bit later. But one thing that you kind of said in there too was about feeling safe to be able to bring up things. Another great quote I have here from Amy Edmondson is the best way to get people to speak up is to create an environment in which they know they are going to be listened to.
Absolutely. And one of the things you did ask me about is books leadership books.
I see you got your notes there.
I do have my notes, but Otto Schumer did Theory U.
Okay.
But in it, he talks about the 4 deep levels of listening. None of us are good listeners. We're not. It's a skill. We have to develop it. As leaders, it's critically important. I remember I had somebody in my office and I was exhausted that day. And so I was not talking as much as I normally do. And it was the best conversation I ever had because I was sitting there and this individual was somebody who just needed the space to talk.
Yeah.
And I understood that in that meeting. And then every other meeting I had with that person, I made sure that I just shut up.
Right.
But he talks about deeply listening. Are we completely present in what we're doing? Are we really here in this moment? Are we thinking about our phone? Is something pulling us here, there, or the other place, right?
Yeah, and it is, there's so many distractions out. We don't even need to look for them anymore. They're just present in our everyday life.
Yeah.
And, I know with Amy, even just reframing, safe workplace, in the way she's talking about it, for us here, it's been really interesting. We're in construction, and construction's pretty old school, and you don't often ask for opinions. So for us this year, we've seen incredible change occur, just in celebrating mistakes, right? Giving people the flexibility to try things, to be creative. Creativity, in a government setting, how do you encourage creative throughout departments and encourage your managers to allow that creativity? Do you find most of them are equipped to really even understand what that is?
I'll give you an example. And there was an individual that knew that we had to change the way we did our water rates and water structure. And this person has so much courage because he brought it forward for 14 years. And you have to give him kudos for that.
14 years.
14 years.
That's some staying
he
power.
knew it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And as public servants, we are doing the best for the community, right? To create that space, you have to really council, and I think council and leadership should be a leadership team. So you need to have that support. And you need to have the space, but you also need the community to understand. And one thing I've really tried to do in my career is make sure that we're managing expectations of the community. So when I'm having conversations where people come in and say, well, Anne, can you do this? And I say, I never make promises. I will look into it. That's all we say.
Right.
But even when we're doing something new or trying something new, making sure that we communicate well and we say, okay, and even our reports that go to council, on this end, we're just doing housekeeping and we're informing you as the public, to the other end of the spectrum where we want your input to make a decision.
Right.
And making sure that's very clear. Because one thing I heard when I first came here was, well, we gave you feedback and nothing happened. So making sure that people understand, what does your feedback mean?
What is it framing?
What is it framing? Like even we had municipal mingles, which were events where we could showcase different things we were doing. And then it got rebranded to Shape Your City. And I had a really great talk with our new CFO, and she oversees communications, and we were talking about how do we make sure the public understands what their feedback does. And she said, well, some of the events there are asking for feedback, but some were telling this is what we're doing. So of course you can understand the public's frustration.
Sure.
I'm here to give you feedback, but you've already made your decision.
Right.
So we're going to rebrand that, and we're always continuous improvement, trying to get better so that we have that relationship with the public.
Yeah, they want to. No different than what we just said. They want to feel heard.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's a staff member, the general public, somebody on council, the not just being listened to, but actually being heard.
Yes.
Right? I don't know if that's the right way to put that.
It is, and there's a very big distinction there, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. How do you personally set the tone for that open communication workplace?
Well, one of the things I do is make sure that I'm always available. My door's always open for people in the community, my team, council. I'm there to listen. and I'm there to hear everything. When I first came here, what I normally do when I come to a new municipality as a CAO, city manager, I meet individually with each member of council and then collectively, because council works as a whole.
Yep.
And I deeply listen to all of them because I'm here to implement council's vision. And as their employee, I have to do it through all my employees. But making sure, one of the things I noticed when I first came here, when a city gets to be a certain size, and I noticed this when I was in Lethbridge County watching the city of Lethbridge, sometimes they get overly bureaucratic and they want to run in spite of council. But we have to remember that we are here to implement council's vision.
Right.
Like, I'd love to get T-shirts that say that because it's like my mantra. We are here to implement. It'd be
awesome to walk into City Hall and just see a bunch of staff.
Understanding, of course, we have regulations and limits, and we have to run the city.
Yeah.
So we get all that, but council has a specific vision. That's their strategic plan, and then we implement it.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so you touched on a word there, bureaucratic, right? I think that is often very easily associated with government, but we also see it creeping into business, as businesses scale and grow and they kind of go from, call it owner operator. And then you start to see that hierarchical tree start to build out further. So one of the people I really enjoy reading is Jim Collins. And he had something written in his book, Good to Great, which was bureaucracy is a compensation for incompetence and the lack of discipline. Yeah. Kind of a touchy one, right? But I want to kind of be able to have a conversation on that quote, and not just in the context of government. I think that's too easy to pick on if that's a fair statement, but just on the overall. So yeah, bureaucracy is a compensation for incompetence and a lack of discipline.
Well, I've done a lot of reading on public administration and, how we make policy change incrementally. And there's quite a few reports that have been out specifically on federal government, public servants, but also with local government. I love talking about this with people, but one of my former employees at my last municipality talked about local government employees and a 10-year term. And I jokingly said, isn't your 10-year anniversary coming up? But that employee had worked in the private sector. So if you look at CAOs, for example, we go to new municipalities. We have to start all over again. We have to prove to the staff that we're worth following as their leader. We have to prove that to all the stakeholders in the community, and we have to prove it to council. And we have to do
council changes.
Yes, they do.
Right.
And then we have to start that wheel all over again. But I think that's good because, and I think as employees, if you have a long-term employee, how do we help them so they're being their best selves and not stuck in that role? That's how we break out of bureaucracy. That's what I believe. Is that person working to their best of their ability internally?
How are they being challenged?
Exactly. Can they find something different that they want to do within the organization? So these kind of things we need to look at so that everybody's working at their best self, because when they're creative and they're innovative.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know when Collins put this in the book, what he also said following this is kind of to add more context to it is, the minute you start having to hire managers to manage people, and in this case, people that aren't doing their job well, that's when you have hit bureaucratic problems.
Absolutely.
Because, ideally, if you shouldn't have to hire someone to manage someone that can't do their job well. And then this hydra just builds out, right?
I agree. And I saw a quote the other day somewhere, and it said something about you hired leaders, not children.
Yeah. Yeah, well, exactly, right? But sometimes those conversations are also hard to have. But you have to be aware of the fact that if you do have a child or someone that isn't, able to make their own decisions, you have to make decisions to move on from that, right?
Absolutely.
How do you in a government setting? I guess there's also a saying, hire slow, fire fast. What does that mean to you? Let's talk about a government setting a minute. How are you able to do that?
Well, I think it's a bit challenging making sure that you have all the mechanisms in place for, if needed, progressive discipline.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to an employee's experience, I would say. Is that person in the right role? Do they even have the right job descriptions? Like recently, we revamped 200 job descriptions for non-union employees. Yeah, because they were so old that you might be in a role and according to your job description,
right,
you're doing this. But sitting down with that employee while we're redoing that, so it wasn't just we did it.
It wasn't a top-down approach.
No.
It was collaborative.
It was collaborative.
Yeah.
And then, there was a few employees said, well, but I like doing this. No, but this is your job.
Right.
So that's how we hold people accountable. And those processes are in place and they understand that.
Yeah.
So making sure that is. And to your point, if you have somebody in an organization who is toxic or challenging, once you understand that, you really need to act. And those are the hard decisions that you have to make.
Yeah.
And I've heard this many times. We like so-and-so. No, is so-and-so fulfilling the role they were hired to do? Because we are running a corporation.
Absolutely. Yeah. People, there's accountability.
Absolutely.
And you just said that a minute ago. There's accountability to everybody's role, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And if we're not holding them accountable, then that breeds complacency at that level, right? And what ends up happening, and it's cliched, but you end up losing the good ones because they just get frustrated.
You absolutely do. If you have somebody sitting here and somebody sitting here, this one's a star and working, and this one's just floating along and not doing their job. If we don't hold this one accountable, we will lose this one. Another thing is challenge too is, you said it earlier, Randy, is it's just a progression sometimes. We did this job, so we should get this job.
Yes.
But I don't think we have to make sure as leaders, whoever is leading that person or making that hiring decision, we have to really make sure that that person is right for that role. But having the conversations and the hard conversations, nobody wants to have those. You have to as a leader. And I had somebody who wanted to move up in a role. They weren't suited for it. I sat down and I had an hour-long conversation. And they applied, and then they weren't successful. And then I had another conversation afterwards. So to understand. But what that did is it set the stage for the person who came in and that person to work collaboratively together.
Sure.
Because those conversations had happened beforehand.
Yeah. Have you ever recruited anyone? I would say, so you've been doing this a long time. You've been to, I can't even imagine how many different events or conferences and whatever else. And I'm sure you've come across some amazing people where you get that connection. You're like, I want to work with that person, right? They see the way I see, right? Yeah. Have you ever had an opportunity to actually recruit someone in that capacity, and has it been successful?
I have a saying that I say, all's fair in love and recruitment. And I'm always recruiting. Yeah. Because there is a lot of talented people out there, and there is a lot of people that the way the workforce is right now, people can work where they want.
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities. We have to be an employer of choice. We're working towards that. But do they want to come and work with you? Do you have a good reputation as a leader? And what about the rest of your team?
Yeah, what is the culture? What's
happening now is people are interviewing us.
Isn't that funny?
Yes. So because I'm a seasoned CAO, my name's known, and sometimes that helps me recruit as well too. But I am always on the lookout for talent.
Yeah, and I love it because I think often we try to go down those traditional ways of hiring, right?
Yeah.
And guess what? We usually get traditional hires.
Exactly.
And I love it. And I'm sure have you ever had people reach out to you and say, Anne, I want to work with you?
All the time.
Yeah, you do. Hey?
All the time. Yeah.
And then when that moment is right and there's an opportunity that comes up, have you ever created a position for anybody? So even within your own team, you were just talking a little bit ago about, having to sit down with a person and they're like, well, I really like doing this. And you realize, okay, well, maybe they're not the best fit for where they are, but if we can move over here, have you ever kind of
Yeah, and when I was in Ontario, I did, because we created that position because the manager was very good at the one thing, and then created the deputy manager position just to make sure that the people were being looked after in that situation, right?
Yeah.
Not in the structure I'm in right now, because right now what we're in the middle of is we're doing a workforce strategy, and so people get worried when we do this. But what we're doing is we have a 3-year people strategy. It includes culture review, compensation review for non-union, and also the workforce strategy. And what the workforce strategy is, it's not to cut the workforce, it's to look at the workforce. How are we delivering municipal services? Right. Are they effective? Could we do it another way? Could this team be doing something different? So we've had these conversations. We've had these conversations with council, and we've talked to the public about it too.
Yep.
It's just to make sure that we are delivering services as efficiently as possible. The City of Medicine Hat didn't even have a service delivery review when I got here. They do not have a list of the services that we provide. It's
just blurred.
Yeah.
Like,
it just organically happened. Right. We know what we do, and that's fine. So we have already started that, and we have implemented that. It is partway through, and now we're doing the costing mechanism.
I was just going to say, because now it's okay to say we do all this. What's it cost?
What does it cost? And that way then council can make, informed decisions.
Yeah.
When you say, okay, we're providing this service, this is how much it costs, and this is what it means to the community.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is huge. As taxpayers, obviously we want to understand that the taxes we're paying are being used properly, right? And that's a stigma. And I think, how do you navigate some of those conversations with the general public where they no matter what you do, you're wasting their money.
Absolutely. So we have to show, because I've been working in public sector for all my whole career, but the workforce strategy, how do we define how we're doing services if they're not inventoried, right? And I think the more we show the public that, the clearer it is.
Yeah, no, for sure. I had asked you coming in here, some of your favorite authors. So you mentioned one already. You've gotten your notes there.
Yep.
What are some others? And what are some of your takeaways?
Well, one of the interesting things, I went at 52 years of age. I went and took my master's in leadership at Royal Roads.
Okay.
I really found it fascinating because some of the things that I was doing as a leader, I now had them named for me. One of my most favorite things was situational leadership.
Okay.
That I've always embraced that. I just didn't know what it was called.
Sure. Yeah,
so
you did it.
I did it, but I was like, oh, that's what that's called. But it's really interesting, especially in my role, because you lead up, down, and out. But more deeper than that is everybody's individual. So if I had 3 people that worked for me, I don't lead this person like I lead this person, like I lead this person. And I really agree with that. And it changes, throughout your career. But there's Coos and Posner. They did the Leadership Challenge. It's a great book.
Okay.
And they have 5 things they say take away. Model the way. And I love that because it reminds me all the time, tone at the top. As a leader,
I like that saying, tone at the top.
Oh, I love it because you don't realize the impact you're having on people.
Right.
Even comments you make in the hallway, anything, you always have to model the way. That's, number one. Inspire a shared vision. So you're setting the culture. You're setting the tone.
You're the chief inspirational officer.
Yeah, exactly. I like that title better. Challenge the process. We need to. Like you say, bureaucracy, you've got to challenge the process. You're working in this system. Let's listen to whoever's working on the front line and how we can do this better. Challenge. And when it gets up to you, help somebody to make that, to break it. That's how we get out of it.
14-year-old water solution.
Exactly.
Right?
Like that guy. Wow. we actually started something called the City Manager Innovation Awards.
Love it.
And
actually I saw that on LinkedIn. I saw a couple. Yeah.
We've got another one coming up too.
Love it.
Enable others to act.
Yep.
And encourage the heart. So lead with your heart.
Lead with your
I
heart.
love that.
Yeah.
That's a good one. And then another one, I did talk about Otto Schirmer, but presence. That's by 4 authors. And it just talks about the importance of leading with purpose, but being completely present in everything you do. When you're checked out, people know you're checked out.
Well, you gotta. It takes some self-awareness, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And I think we owe that to our teams, and honestly to the important people in our lives to know, when, hey, we're not operating at our best right now, and now's just not the time for this conversation. Or, but let's come back to it. The one thing actually you said there was, lead with your heart, and I love that because number one, I think we need more of that in the world. But that is what builds community, right?
Absolutely.
And your job really as the CAO or a city manager is, at least in my view, is how is Ann Mitchell going to build community here in Medicine Hat and kind of pull those puppet strings at all the different up, down, sideways levels to make that happen.
We have to be in the community. We have to be part of the community. We are part of the community.
Yeah.
I had somebody stop me on my way out of City Hall the other day, and I spent 10, 15 minutes talking to them. And I said, look, I'm just going to a meeting, but I'm more than happy to. And they looked at me and said, I can't believe you stopped and talked. And I said, well, why wouldn't I? I'm a public servant. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here to serve. I'm here to listen.
Yeah.
We're here to improve our communities.
Well, exactly. And I think even for those of us not in government, there's a lot of lessons that can be taken away from that, because I think too often that selfish mindset kicks in and we just go, well, it's about me, it's about me, it's about me. And from a business owner in the Medicine Hat community, I think businesses here have an obligation, and doing a lot of amazing things, definitely. But what are we doing to improve our local communities? We just had so when you got here, I was frazzled and tired, and I explained to you that this week's just been a blur. We've through a church that I'm a member of, we've been hosting this service group, and we've had kids from our own church at Living Hope to some from Burdett, and then a group from Bellingham, Washington came up. And one of the most amazing things that has happened through that is when you all of a sudden you get out into the community and you start touching and having conversations with people, whether it was down at the Root Cellar hosting a community barbecue, or we were handing out freezies in Veterans Memorial Park to the vulnerable, right? You have these conversations and you realize that we're all human. Some of us have been more fortunate to end up at where we are in life. Some have just made bad decisions that have, singularly put them in a bad space in life. But that compassion and empathy for the fact that we are all one community, right? And, what do you do in your own personal life? Like, how do you see that in your life outside of the city?
I find the more difficult I'm dealing with situations, I try to go out of my way to be kind to others.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to take the anger and put it on other people. There's always people who need help, who reach out to me. I'm always open for that.
Yeah.
I've mentored a lot of people through my career. I do a lot of things in my local government community to support other people who are in difficult situations or need that kind of guidance and leadership. I took my certified coaching to help me with that. Mm-hmm. And I have about right now, and I try to not overwhelm myself, but right now I have about 5 people that I'm supporting that are young leaders.
Okay.
And not necessarily just in local government, but people I've bumped into. And I want to make sure that we're going to lose good people in this sector unless we support their growth and development. Right. So that's what I get a lot of joy out of, and I give that back. So make sure that you're there and that you're giving that so people can continue to do this work, which I think is critically important.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's, if we aren't doing something, help that next generation that's coming in. I actually think they're in a lot better shape than we are. I think they're way more in tune with their emotions and
Yeah.
the sensitivities that are out there nowadays.
They understand that they need to fill up their cup before they can give to others.
It's one of my favorite sayings.
We are not
Yeah.
I'm just about to turn 60, and I tell you, I'm still in that generation where you don't let yourself off the hook ever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fill your cup. So, it's you have to work on yourself,
Yes.
right?
All the time.
You have to do things and put yourself in situations that give you that energy so that you can give that energy back out to others.
And I found this T-shirt once, and it said "Work in Progress," and I love it, because if we ever think that we're perfect, we are in trouble.
Yeah,
we always have to be looking in the mirror, and we should always go home and say, you know, oh man, I could have done that differently. And if you're always doing the self-examination, then that's when you do all that exploration and you become a better human.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got a little painting in my office also that says, be a river, not a reservoir.
Yes.
You even if we are spending all that time to improve ourselves and fill our cup and do all that, what does that spill out look like? Right? It does nobody any good to do all this personal self-reflection, professional development, all this stuff that's going to make us a better version of ourselves, yet not share it with anybody.
Exactly. I'm such a different person than I was when I was 18. And, I'm grateful I have good people in my life that support me. But mostly I'm grateful for I have people who tell me when I'm doing something wrong and need to be told that. I'm always grateful for that. I had a Reeve earlier in my career, and I went into his office and I said, man, I didn't do that right. And he looked at me and he burst out laughing. He said, I know I never have to be hard on you. You're just too hard on yourself. But it's a recognition,
Yeah, we're our own worst critics.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you have to give yourself some grace too. Grace and space.
Grace and space. Yep. You said that earlier. And we have to give that grace and space to others.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Put yourself in people's shoes. I read a good thing. I'm a big book reader. One of the earliest books I ever read was To Kill a Mockingbird.
That's a great book.
It's a great book. And I love that he did it. He defended. He knew he wasn't going to win, but he did the best he could do. Yeah. But the piece about walking in somebody else's shoes and understanding things from other people's perspectives.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, and it was funny. That was that moment. So it was my daughter Nora and I, quickly talking back on the vulnerable in the community. It was that moment when you're handing that freezy, something as simple as a freezy, over to somebody who is down and out, and we're witnessing some things that I hadn't really seen before. But the gratitude that they showed and the look in their eye, and that impacts a person, and
absolutely,
and that humanocracy side of it, right? How does kind of want to go here for just a bit? How do cities and how do municipalities, can't avoid it, the vulnerable in the community is a massive, massive thing, right? Medicine Hat, I think in talking with Danny at the Mustard Seed last week, or this week actually, I think she said they have about 30 in their shelter and about 45 unhoused within the city right now, so 75. We're a town of 65,000 people. Bellingham, Washington, who's up here this week, is 95,000 people. They have over 1,000 unhoused, so per capita, blowing us out of the water. The not in my backyard. Walk me through how cities, how do you manage this, right? Because it seems to be getting a lot worse.
It does, and we have had so many complaints. The challenge with local government in general is that we are closest to the people. So if there's an issue in the city, we are the ones that get the questions, I would say sometimes recriminations. We're trying really hard to get people to understand what level of government is doing it. But we started a task force because we did a strategic check-in with council in October. And one of the things was that they wanted to address the downtown issues and the safety issues. So the task force has started, but it's a bigger understanding of it is not, it's such a complex, thorny problem. But we have to realize we as cities are going to be the front line answering all those questions. One of the things I'm looking at through my PhD is public service boards. And the thing is, why don't the police deal with this? Council can tell the police what to do. Well, no, we have a police commission. There's a police act. So
it isn't that simple.
It isn't that simple.
No.
There's also issues with the justice system and way these things are taken. And I think sometimes there's not enough supports with mental health. We look at the way everything was handled during COVID. And one of the interesting things I was talking to somebody about in my other council, and they were originally from Europe. And they said that they had a full Canada-wide or a country-wide health care. So their response to COVID was a lot different because it was united. Whereas in Canada, it's provincial responsibility for health. Yeah. And so you see this disconnect. So bringing it back to the homeless, because there's so many federal, provincial, local, it's a very thorny issue. We have to tackle it, obviously, but we've got a good task force now and we're working together. We did something similar in Northwestern Ontario. We called it a Healthy Communities Task Force.
Okay.
The challenge with that is that there was no head leading it. The city shouldn't lead it because it's not something under our mandate.
Right. And that was actually going to be my next question is government the right organization to lead it?
Not necessarily.
Right.
We don't know, and we have to figure all that out.
Yeah.
One thing we did discover in Ontario is that there was a lot of duplication of services. So if anything, going through all of that process, it was understanding. One of my managing directors sits on the task force, but I was there recently, and they just talked about how do we triage. And so the disconnect with all the different service providers, can that help the system?
Sure.
So we're looking at those kind of things, and it's not going to be a quick solution, but I would say that having everybody in the room at the table and all the different levels of government and the nonprofits working together, Medicine Hat does that really well.
Nice.
Really well.
Where's industry in this? Like, are you finding good support through local business, through the community in general? Yeah,
there is. Some of our largest employers and smaller employers are so supportive of different programs in the city. For a community of 65,000, it's a little small town mindset, which is good because when there's a crisis, everybody comes together and supports, which we're very lucky.
Absolutely. No, and that's great. So locally with the mustard seed, and I really do get this. I know a couple of people that live in the area where the facility was just closed down, and definitely not a safe space for those local residents. How can organizations like the Seed, Mustard Seed, support a local community, and what does that relationship look like with the city to find the right space for them?
Well, I think we have to, and we've had a lot of conversations about this. Some cities will just go, it's not us, we don't worry about it. We don't feel like that. And I understand too, council wants us to work together, and they've made that very clear with the groups to try and find a solution. The challenge is it has to be in the right location to support the vulnerable, but also to make sure that it is not impinging on anybody's rights or, and the services should be together in one area, right? Yeah. So I think we are, even though, and that's where in local government, we often do things that aren't under our mandate, aren't under our scope, but we do them so that we facilitate so that we have a better community to live in. And so I think it's worth shepherding it through, being a supportive voice at the table to make sure the solution meets the community's needs.
Yeah, because not all communities are the same, right? You
not
go
at
up
all.
to northern Ontario where there's a massive Indigenous population, similar to Lethbridge.
Yep.
Lethbridge's needs are going to be significantly different from the needs of Medicine Hat.
When I was in Northwestern Ontario, the crime rate there was 4 times anywhere in the province. because
Wow.
of that issue. So, of course, then you have the issues, the homelessness issues. You have higher than average police rates. Then you have court costs.
Incarceration rates.
Exactly.
And everything that goes
it
along.
spirals in a whole other issues too as well.
It's something I hope, even going back to what we talked about before which is just, community kind of being built through the people and the individuals. You just hope that we can all kind of find a place where we can start just looking at this a little bit more, as a community problem, not a government problem.
And one of the things is I hear often is we just wish that the mustard seed would go away. But the challenge is we have to work on solutions. And I think everybody has to understand that this is a problem that's facing every city.
Yeah, it is.
So how do we do it for a uniquely Medicine Hat solution?
Yeah. No, for sure. And how do you stay focused and grounded throughout your day, your weeks, your months, your years?
Some days it's really challenging, but I have a really great partner, and they've been with me for a long time. So that would be my grounding. Reading, getting out of my headspace, going somewhere, traveling, somewhere calm and peaceful. I don't go on social media. I do have a professional LinkedIn page, but that's it. I think knowing that some individuals are just angry and I get to be the lightning rod.
You said that when we had coffee a few weeks ago.
So just understanding that. And I think the longer I've been around, I'm pretty pragmatic about it.
Yeah.
People need somebody to blame.
Yeah.
And I'm handy. But knowing that, and I think it's more challenging for people in my role, the people who are with us, who love us, to sit on the sidelines. I worry about that more than anything.
Yeah. Do you find some of those daily rhythms?
Yeah.
Are they individual to you, or do you also have ones that you try to do with other people, with your partner?
Yeah, we try to get away and just have some space, and understanding that that's work.
Yeah.
And, sometimes just parking it. And I've been doing this a long time, and this is my 5th municipality as a city manager. So you kind of get to that stage where you go, okay. And the communities are not just this community. A lot of communities are just getting angrier. I really found something interesting on one of the podcasts we did, talking about, a lot of people say ever since COVID, but I actually was grateful for COVID. It made me center, what do I want out of this next phase of my life, right?
Yeah.
It really makes you think about that. But we had somebody on the podcast, we did a little local gov podcast, and he was talking about liminal space, when you go from one space to the other.
Okay.
And he talked about, so say you graduate, you have a ceremony, you get married, you have a ceremony. Like you're changing from one state to another. And he talked about COVID, and he said that imagine a lake, and imagine that we're on boats, and our boats are at the shore. Now that COVID's over, and I'm using air quotes here,
will it ever be over? Yeah.
Some of the boats have found their way to the other side of the shore. Some are still clinging to this side of the shore and haven't left it, and even more are floating around the middle.
Right.
And I think that speaks to understanding people and where they are and how they're coping.
I like that. Absolutely. I want to give a shout out to partners a minute. How impactful is your partner in the success of Ann Mitchell, not necessarily in work, but in life?
Oh, I would be nothing without him. I say that very, very clear. He's grounding. Yeah. He's honest. He's supportive. I always like the emperor with no clothes. I always like that. I don't want to be that person. I want to understand. And having him around, he's honest, brutally so.
You use him as a sounding board?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And
has he ever asked you to just go to counseling?
No, not yet. Not in 35 years, but he's just a really good human. Yeah.
That's awesome. I know. People in leadership positions need incredible support. alongside them.
Yeah.
And partners and spouses are critical to that.
And I wouldn't say this is my journey. I would say it's our journey.
I
Yeah.
like that too, for
Yeah.
sure. Do you have any other specific books or anything like, and if we get away from business, are there any books personally that you've really enjoyed reading? And you've also written a book.
I did. I wrote a book called The Key on the Tree, and with the way I write, I have to get the title first. So I've had this title for quite a few years.
Yeah.
My second CAO job was on Peely Island, which is Canada's southernmost municipality.
Okay.
And we had a long building. We had Parks and Rec, Fire, and Public Works, all equipment in this big, long building.
Yep.
And
Everybody under one roof.
everybody under one roof. And I said to the new volunteer fire chief, I said, okay, you need a key for the building. And he said, oh, it's okay, Ann. There's keys on the tree. Everybody on the island knows it. And I was like, wow. First job,
Great.
Lock the building, take the key off the tree. But what it is it's the stories of my first 4
Interesting.
municipalities that I was CAO at.
Yeah.
So it came out in the fall. And then earlier than that, I wrote a chapter on municipal Indigenous relationships in City Managers in Their Own Words book that came out.
Love it. Yeah. And I know you're going to grace me with a copy of your...
I will. And, it's such a unique job that I think the more I did some writing too, my first research when I did my master's was on council CAO relationships and the important and the unique nature of that. And I'd like to see more people doing research on that so
Right.
that we can improve our institutions.
For sure. Absolutely. And I got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
What is the one thing today you wish you could mentor out about saying where leadership is going?
I would say it's getting more challenging as we go into this next time. We're in 2025. Cities are more complex than they've ever been. Mm-hmm. They're taking on a lot of things that they didn't traditionally do. We don't just build roads and bridges and provide water anymore.
No, it's not just infrastructure anymore, right?
No. And I would say leadership, but on a positive note with leadership, I would say I like the changes that I've seen over my time. Being a leader, you can be more your true, unique self. And I always like that.
Getting the best out of every person, right?
Yes, and you're a good leader if you're being your true, authentic,
Absolutely. You're working
self.
in your area of strength, right?
Yes.
And your cup is full and.
Yes.
It makes it easy.
Yeah, and I remember once I was in my office in Ontario and I had somebody come in and I was on the phone with somebody else and I kind of went, yeah, and I went like that and I went, I hung up on him. And the other person said, you always do that when you're done the conversation and it's over, click. And I was like, and I laughed at that because they knew me so well. They said, we don't take offense and you're just moving on to the next thing.
Exactly. Yeah, we're done here, right?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So knowing yourself.
Yeah, love it. And what gives you hope for the future of Medicine Hat?
It gives me hope because there's a lot of good people here.
Yeah.
There is a lot of good people. And there's a lot of good people that really care about the community. And that gives me hope.
I love it. Yeah. And we're going to continue to build that community. And I look forward to more opportunities to work alongside you.
Yes.
Doing that into the future.
Thank you so much for the time today. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely.